Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. If you've ever looked at a beautiful orchid and thought, I could never keep that alive, then this video is for you. Today, we're diving deep into the world of orchids, and I promise, by the end of this, you'll have the confidence to not just keep them alive, but to help them thrive. Orchids have a reputation for being fussy, but the truth is, they're just a little misunderstood. Let's demystify orchid care together. First things first, let's talk about the most common type of orchid you'll find in stores, the Phalaenopsis or moth orchid. Most of the tips we'll cover today are perfect for these beauties, but they can also be applied to many other common varieties. So, you've brought your new orchid home. What now? The first mistake many people make is leaving it in that decorative no-drainage pot it came in. That's a big no-no. Orchids hate having wet feet. Their roots need air, and sitting in water is a fast track to root rot, which is the #1 killer of household orchids. So, your first task is to gently lift the clear plastic inner pot out of the decorative one. This inner pot with all its drainage holes is your orchid's best friend. Always water your orchid in this pot and let it drain completely before placing it back in the decorative container. Now, let's talk about watering. This is where most people go wrong. Forget the ice cube trick. Orchids are tropical plants. They don't appreciate a frozen shock to their roots. The best way to water is to take the plant still in its clear inner pot to the sink. Use lukewarm water and let it run through the potting medium for about 15 to 20 seconds, making sure to saturate everything. Then, and this is crucial, let it drain completely. I mean, let it sit in the sink for at least 10 to 15 minutes until no more water is dripping out. How often should you do this? It depends on your home's environment, but a good rule of thumb is to check the roots. That's why the clear pot is so fantastic. If the roots you can see inside the pot are silvery green, it's time to water. If they are bright, vibrant green, they still have plenty of moisture, so you can wait a few more days. For most homes, this will translate to watering about once every 7 to 14 days. It's always better to underwater than to overwater. Next up is light. Orchids love bright, but indirect light. Think of their natural habitat. They grow under the canopy of tropical forests, receiving dappled sunlight. A good spot in your home would be near an east-facing window where it gets gentle morning sun, or a few feet back from a south or west-facing window. Direct, scorching afternoon sun will burn their leaves, which you'll see as yellow or brown patches. If you're not sure if your light is too intense, use the hand test. Place your hand between the orchid and the window. If your hand casts a sharp, dark shadow, the light is too direct. You want a soft, fuzzy shadow. If your leaves start turning a dark, deep green, it might be a sign it's not getting enough light. Healthy leaves are typically a bright olive green. Let's move on to the potting medium. You'll notice your orchid isn't planted in soil. It's in a chunky mix of things like bark, charcoal, or moss. This is because orchid roots, specifically the epiphytic ones, are designed to cling to trees in the wild, not sit in dense soil. This special mix allows for the excellent airflow and drainage they need. Over time, usually every 1 to 2 years, this bark mix will break down and start to hold too much water. This is when you need to repot your orchid. You'll know it's time if the medium looks mushy, you see roots spilling way over the pot, or the plant just isn't doing well. When you repot, you'll want to use a fresh orchid bark mix and a pot that's just one size bigger. Don't be tempted to jump to a giant pot. They like to be a little snug. We can do a whole separate video on repotting, so let me know in the comments if you'd like to see that. Now for the fun part. Getting your orchid to rebloom. This is the ultimate reward for good care. After your orchid finishes blooming, the flower spike will turn brown and dry up. You can cut this spike all the way back to the base of the plant. This allows the orchid to focus its energy on growing new leaves and roots, which is essential for the next bloom cycle. To encourage a new flower spike to grow, orchids often need a slight temperature drop at night. A difference of about 10 to 15 degrees Fahrenheit between day and night temperatures for a few weeks can trigger it. For many of us, this happens naturally in the fall when we start letting our homes cool down at night. So, if your orchid has been growing healthy new leaves but hasn't spiked, try moving it to a slightly cooler spot at night. What about feeding your orchid? Yes, they do need nutrients, but not too much. During their growing season, when they're actively putting out new leaves or roots, you can use a balanced orchid fertilizer. A common recommendation is to fertilize weekly. This means you dilute the fertilizer to about a quarter or half of the recommended strength and use it once a week when you water. During the winter or when the plant is dormant, you can reduce feeding to once a month or stop altogether. Over-fertilizing can burn the roots, so again, less is more. Let's talk about some common problems. Yellowing leaves. If it's one of the bottom oldest leaves, this is often a natural part of the plant's life cycle. The old leaf dies off as a new one grows. However, if multiple leaves are turning yellow, it could be a sign of overwatering. Check those roots. Are they brown and mushy? That's root rot. If you catch it early, you can repot the orchid, trimming away any dead roots with sterilized scissors before placing it in a fresh bark mix. What about sticky spots on the leaves? This is often orchid honey or guttation, which is totally normal. However, you should still check the undersides of the leaves for pests like mealybugs or scale, which can also cause sticky residue. If you see any little white fuzzy spots or brown bumps, you'll want to treat them. You can do this by dabbing them with a cotton swab dipped in rubbing alcohol, which dissolves their protective coating. And that brings us to humidity. Orchids are tropical plants, so they do appreciate humidity. Our homes, especially in the winter, can be quite dry. You can increase humidity by placing your orchid on a tray of pebbles with a little water in it, making sure the pot isn't sitting directly in the water. Or you can group your plants together. They'll create a more humid microenvironment for each other. A small humidifier in the room is also a fantastic option. Misting can help, but it's temporary and can sometimes lead to issues if water sits on the leaves or in the crown of the plant, so be careful with that. So, to recap our ultimate orchid care guide. Use a pot with great drainage. Water thoroughly but infrequently, letting the roots tell you when. Give it bright, indirect light. Repot every year or two in a chunky orchid mix. Encourage reblooming with a temperature drop and fertilize weekly during the growing season. It might sound like a lot, but once you get into a rhythm, it becomes second nature. The key is observation. Pay attention to your plant's leaves and roots, and it will tell you exactly what it needs. Don't be discouraged if you lose one or two along the way. Every plant parent has, but with these tips, you're well on your way to having beautiful, thriving orchids that will reward you with stunning blooms for years to come. Thank you so much for watching today. I hope you found this guide helpful and feel more confident in your orchid care journey. If you have any questions or your own tips to share, please leave them in the comments below. I love hearing from you all. Don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it and subscribe for more plant care guides. Happy planting, and I'll see you in the next one.